Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick, and in this video we're going to be comparing the Nike Invincible 3 and the Nike Pegasus 40. So the Invincible 3 and the Pegasus 40 are two shoes that show off very different approaches to cushioning and shoe design in general. The Invincible is the more modern shoe with a very big stack height of a super foam, whereas the Pegasus is a classic running shoe that has a fairly balanced midsole and works for lots of people, but the ingredients in it aren't perhaps quite as exciting as some of the stuff that goes on with the Nike Invincible 3. Invincible 3 is also more of a cushion shoe geared towards the easy runs, whereas the Pegasus is billed more as an all-rounder. I'll be talking through the differences between them in this video to see which might be best suited to different runners. The Pegasus is the cheaper shoe. It's £115 in the UK, $130 in the US, whereas the Invincible 3 is £170 in the UK and $180 in the US. Invincible is heavier as well. It's 316 grams or 11.1 ounces in my UK size 9, whereas the Pegasus 40 is 292 grams or 10.3 ounces in a UK 9. Pegasus has a 10mm drop and the Invincible has a 9mm drop, and the Invincible 3 is a max cushion shoe, so its stack height goes up to 40mm at the heel, whereas the Pegasus is 33mm at the heel, which is more where traditional cushion shoes used to be in terms of stack height, whereas nowadays we're seeing supersized shoes like the Invincible 3 that use lightweight foam so they can pack in a lot of cushioning without making them too heavy. Midsole is probably the key difference between the two shoes. Like, not only is the Invincible stack height a lot bigger, it's also wider, and it's made from Nike's ZoomX foam. That's a PEBA-based foam, soft and squishy, very springy foam used in Nike's racing shoes as well. Whereas the Pegasus has a React midsole with two Zoom Air pods, one under the heel and one under the forefoot. It's a much more dull midsole in general. It's a bit more durable, it's a bit more balanced and less exciting and more stable, whereas the Invincible is a much more lively and exciting ride, but the foam is a bit wobblier as a result. To counter that, with the Invincible, Nike has put a plastic heel clip around the back of the shoe that sinks into the midsole a little bit to try and create some stability. It's also got, like I say, a very wide platform, much wider than the Pegasus, to create stability given the high stack of soft foam. It's got a Flyknit upper with actually not as much cushioning around the heel as the Pegasus, which is a little bit surprising given the very comfortable nature of this shoe. And then you've got a waffle tread outsole with pretty good coverage all round. The Pegasus 40 also has that waffle style design on some of the outsole, and it almost has these little grippy lugs on the lateral side of the shoe there. The outsole maybe seems slightly thicker on the Pegasus as well, I'll say that. It has a breathable mesh upper with a good amount of padding around the heel there and on the tongue as well. The upper on the Pegasus 40 has been changed slightly compared to the Pegasus 39 to create a better fit around the midfoot, but for the most part it's a pretty standard upper all round with a good amount of padding at the back there to make it comfortable for regular use.
So fit for me in these two shoes is definitely very interesting. So I find out these are two shoes in Nike's range that always look to me like when I put them on, they run a little bit long on my feet. But ultimately, I don't think I would go half a size up or half a size down based on my UK size 8, which I had on both of these shoes. I think if I went half a size up, it would be too long. I think if I went half a size down, I think you lose a little bit of the kind of room that you want for when you're running a little bit longer and you need that extra kind of space there. So from that point of view, absolutely fine. I do think that in terms of the Pegasus 40, I think almost you get something that hugs a little bit closer. I think particularly in the middle of the shoe, it kind of locks you in a little bit more. Whereas I think with the upper particularly, whereas I think with the way that the Invincible 3 is designed, it kind of narrows in a little bit more the middle of the shoe and kind of opens up at the heel and up front in the toes to kind of give you that kind of wider, more stable base, which is obviously creating a more controlled ride on the Invincible 3 compared to the previous shoes. So for me, I think, the padding in the tongue, I think with the Invincible 3, you're getting a little bit more internal kind of padding around the heel, whereas you're getting a little bit more on the kind of top of the Pegasus 40. But ultimately, I think they are built for comfort. I would say that maybe you get something that's a little bit more kind of thicker and kind of more supportive in the Pegasus 40. But in terms of my experience with the Invincible 3, it's been absolutely fine. I think it's roomy, spacious where you want it to be. For a shoe that's predominantly designed to go really easy and long in as well.
These are both UK 5 and US 7.5, so they both fit similarly. I've got a lot of room in the toe boxes for both. Obviously the Invincible is a lot wider, look at how much wider that is, but you don't really feel it. I think it's just because you've got this huge kind of bunion of ZoomX foam. It doesn't feel it looks wider, but it doesn't feel wider is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, a lot of room in both toe boxes, both super comfortable. I'd say that the Invincible has a little bit more kind of support. It's a bit more padded around the arch of the shoe. I think when Nike first launched the shoe, they said it was a support shoe. So this has got a little bit more support in than the Peg, definitely. But apart from that, the fit is super similar. The lacing system's quite different, but you can get a really good kind of locked in. You can pull both tight, get a locked in feel on both. So fit wise, pretty much the same.
Both of these shoes have fit well for me in my normal running shoe size. That is across the board. They are my normal size in UK, EU and US sizing. I've had no concerns with them at all. Good amount of room in the toe box. I would say that the Invincible has a slightly looser fit at the heel than the Pegasus, but I haven't had any rubbing problems myself with this shoe over runs of any length. So that's maybe something to look out for with the Invincible, but overall I was very happy with the fit of both shoes, true to size.
So the run test. The run test, these are very different shoes. These are very, very different shoes. This is the React foam, this is the Zoom X foam, and it's kind of almost a video based on React versus Zoom X, to be honest. Obviously there's a little bit more support in this one, but still, that's what we're talking about here. And for me, the Zoom X foam is the shoe I reach for. The Invincible 3 is the shoe I reach for, I should say, on days where I've got really tired. It's my go-to easy long run shoe. I did most of my training miles, most of my long runs for London Marathon in this shoe. I just love it. I think it's got that kind of really plush, sink-in feel when you put it on. It has that responsiveness. The Zoom X foam is the same as that used in the Vaporfly. That foam, it's a clever foam. It's got a lot of bounce, a lot of responsiveness when you need it to have it. And I love this shoe. I think it's a really exciting, fun shoe to run in. The Peg, on the other hand, has got the React foam. It's got these two Zoom Air units, one here and one on the heel of the shoe. But I think the React foam is a lot firmer. It's a lot more, it is responsive, but it's a lot firmer. You're not getting that kind of really plush feel. Not a bad thing. I think there's probably scientific studies that say you shouldn't run in really soft shoes all the time. I do, I love it. And I find when I put the Peg on, it's not got that same excitement. I don't feel like, oh my God, I want to go for a run in this shoe. But it's still a great shoe. It's still a good shoe to run in. It's an easy, durable. I think putting a Peg on feels like, oh, okay, I'm going for a run. I'm doing my run commute. Do you know what I mean? I'm doing that daily, everyday run. I do like running in both. I have liked running in both. I've done a lot more miles in the Invincible. I do like the Peg, but I think personally 9 times out of 10, I reach for the Invincible more than the Peg. I would say one thing in the Peg's favour is the outsole. This is the worst thing about the Invincible. This outsole does not grip. It does not grip. As soon as the pavements are wet, it's too slippy. I've said this from day one. I've said this in every version of the shoe. It needs to have the outsole of the Peg. And the Peg, you're not going to slip in it. It's durable. It can handle a light trail, and it's a really decent everyday running shoe. And I would argue that maybe the Peg has a little bit more versatility because you could do a tempo session in it, whereas this does feel a bit clunky if you're really trying to pick up the pace. I think because it's got such a high stack height, I tend to overpronate a little bit, and I do tend to roll in.
Okay, so into that run test, and we also have to talk about the fact that with the Pegasus 40, this is very much a shoe that's always been classed as a kind of workhorse, daily trainer shoe. You can run a lot in it. You can do a kind of, some slower, some kind of quicker runs in. Whereas the Invincible is always going to be described as that easy, kind of long recovery run type shoe. But ultimately, I do think that with the makeup of this midsole, it does, you do have the capacity to run a little bit quicker in it. And it's quite interesting because with the Pegasus 40 and actually the Invincible 3, mine kind of roughly weighed in around the same. They're kind of around 280 grams or just over 280 grams, whereas the Pegasus 39 was lighter, considerably lighter than the 40 and also the Invincible 3. So in terms from a weight point of view, I think you're getting something very similar. In terms of the rides are clearly different. This is definitely going to run a little bit firmer, but I do think you're getting something that's still responsive, allows you to run a little bit quicker in it. But I do think with the Invincible 3, though it's kind of defined as a slow, easy shoe, I do think having that Zoom X midsole there and that kind of foam in there, that kind of having that wider base, you can, I think for me, I enjoyed running in this shoe a lot more compared to the time I've had it in the Pegasus 40. I've not absolutely loved everything in the Invincible 3. I did prefer the previous versions. This is obviously a bit more stable than those shoes. It's lost a little bit of the kind of wow factor, I think, but ultimately in terms of if I was picking these two shoes up and I had to go out for a run and I had to go for a slow, easy run, I would probably still go for this. If I wanted to do something a little bit more up tempo, I would still probably veer towards this as well, even though it's not really designed for it. But I do think because of that more energetic ride, that kind of softer feel in the midsole, it works a little bit nicer from that point of view. But Pegasus 40 still does work for those kind of up tempo runs, and I'd have no problem running in that. I just think, I feel like the Invincible 3 holds its weight a little bit better in terms of how it's spread out in the shoe, whereas I think it's a bit of an odd one that this has jumped up in weight so much from the 39, and now it's pretty much level pegged in terms of that weight on the Invincible 3. In terms of other things, really, the outsole, the outsole on the Pegasus 40 is tough. It's going to handle a lot of running. Now, obviously, the Invincible 3 is designed for kind of long, easy runs, so being out on your feet a lot as well. And I think, the designs of those outsoles are very different, but I think they're ultimately going to give you something that will work. Doing regular runs, giving you the capacity to maybe do some kind of lighter trail stuff in these shoes as well. I'd have no kind of issues kind of running some kind of off-road stuff, some lighter off-road stuff in both of these shoes. But ultimately, if you ask me which shoe I would use for similar types of runs, I would probably go for the Invincible 3, despite me not absolutely loving it compared to the previous Invincibles. I do think that the runs that I've done in the Invincible 3, I preferred, which I've done, similar runs to in the Pegasus 40 now, which, is probably not what I thought I would say about these two shoes when I, based on my experience of the kind of previous Pegasus shoes. But I think in terms of these shoes kind of being very distinguishable, I think now they probably work for similar types of runs, and ultimately I think you're getting a midsole that I feel feels a little bit nicer, still has that kind of little bit responsiveness and in terms of what you're getting in the design of this shoe, and gives you something that feels nice and comfortable to run kind of slow and easy as well. So yeah, in terms of my run testing, I think I'd probably veer to I've enjoyed using the Invincible 3 more compared to my time in the Pegasus 40 in my testing.
So like I said up top, these two shoes are billed as slightly different things by Nike. The Invincible 3 is more of a cushion shoe designed for easy and long runs. Got a big old stack of foam there. It's not really built to pick up the pace, although we'll talk about that in a bit. It can do that a little bit, whereas the Pegasus is more of your classic all-rounder daily trainer. It is well cushioned, but it's much lower stack than the Invincible, a bit lighter and a bit better suited to doing a variety of training runs in it. The ride is fairly dull. This React midsole with Zoom AirPods doesn't really have a lot of life. It's not like it's bouncing you along, or you're squishing in and getting huge amounts of energy return, but it is a nice stable platform that's not that noticeable on the run and allows you to do a good variety of runs. And it is comfortable, I will say that. It's got a much lower stack than the Invincible, and the foam's a bit firmer, but it's not at all harsh. I find the Pegasus 40 a very comfortable shoe to use for easy runs. It's not as outrageously cushioned as something like the Invincible, but I don't really need that myself, I find, for most of my easy and long runs. And this is well cushioned throughout the shoe and is comfortable for easy runs of any distance. So actually the bigger problem with the Pegasus is probably that I don't think it's that great at faster paces. It is billed as more of an all-rounder than the Invincible, but I have found that the foam isn't that lively, the ride isn't that smooth. You get a decent snap through, but not that much pop off the shoe. So when you're using it for harder, longer efforts, it lacks a little something, and it's still not exactly a lightweight compared to some of the all-rounders on the market. Invincible, like I say, is really squishy, really cushioned shoe. It's very, very comfortable, that's for sure. And you get a big sink-in feeling with the Zoom X foam underfoot, and then a nice amount of bounce back as well. And that does mean you can pick up the pace to steady or even tempo pace in the shoe quite well. Like I did one longer run in the shoe with a pickup of around 5k, where I was just ticking along at a steady pace, but the pace came out that was pretty comparable to what I get from most shoes. Wouldn't like to go and do hard intervals in it, it's just a bit big and hefty, but the midsole certainly has a lot of bounce, really, whatever pace you're running at. It does work better, obviously, for easy runs and long runs, when you are enjoying that very comfortable midsole and the spring you get from the Zoom X foam. And it's certainly got a more interesting and exciting ride than the Pegasus 40, but the downsides to this midsole are the weight and size of the shoe, which can just be a bit big at times on the run, but also it's a less stable shoe. Like Nike's taken a lot of measures to try and make this more stable, but I do find that if I have a little niggle or my legs are very tired, I just find the Invincible 3 a bit too wobbly to use enjoyably. Like, it just becomes a bit of a concern. It is still just quite a wobbly shoe. You've got to think a bit more about where you're going to go running and whether you're really up for that wobbly, bouncy feeling underfoot, which sometimes I am. It's a fantastic feeling. Like, it's not really many shoes like it out there, but there are other times when I don't really want to use it, and the Pegasus is just a bit more reliable in that regard. It's got that stable, balanced platform, and you can use it lots of places. The outsole's good actually on light trails as well, and yeah, it does provide a more secure feeling underfoot, if not as fun of a feeling as the Invincible 3. The Pegasus is more of an all-rounder shoe, and if that's what you're looking for, it's definitely the shoe to get of these two. It does have a little bit more about it when it comes to doing faster training while still being comfortable for easy runs. With that said, the Invincible 3 isn't exactly a lot worse than the Pegasus for faster runs, because I still don't really rate the Pegasus 40 as a very good speed shoe. It's just a good general shoe, and the Invincible can be used in exactly the same way on that front if you prefer the very soft and bouncy and squishy feeling you get from the Invincible 3. I think the Invincible 3 is more of a Marmite shoe, a bit more of a love it, hate it shoe. Like, some people just won't get on with that sinky feeling underfoot and won't like the instability there. Pegasus is an easier shoe to recommend on that front, because you might not love it, but I do think it will work for pretty much any runner. It's a very balanced, neutral platform, really, that will suit everyone fine, even if they don't necessarily fall in love with it straight away. So like I said, if I was looking for an all-rounder shoe, the Pegasus suits that better. And actually, even looking at them as just as cushion shoes, Pegasus is an easy one to recommend because it is that little bit more stable. It does have a nice outsole and works on a nice variety of terrains, and it's a lot cheaper than the Invincible 3. So it's a shoe I'd recommend out of these two as an all-rounder or as a cushion shoe to add to your rotation. But if you do really want a matte cushion shoe and a next level amount of cushioning and much softer and springier ride, then the Invincible 3 does provide that, but it comes with the caveats that not everyone will love the ride of the shoe, and it can just be that little bit too wobbly at times, I think.
Versus, which would I buy? Which would I buy? This is definitely more expensive. It's a more expensive shoe. The Peg is definitely more affordable. To be honest, I think both of these shoes are pretty similar to their predecessor, but that still doesn't help. Which should you buy? I think if you're a runner with loads of shoes in your collection, you have a shoe to race in, and you want a really comfy shoe, the comfort is your goal, go for the Invincible. I love it. I use it all the time. But if you're a beginner and you're shopping for your one pair of running shoes and you only want one pair of running shoes, I think you probably get more out of the Peg just because you can wear it for quicker stuff. But I would always choose the Invincible because I just love running in it. I think it's a super exciting running shoe, and I don't know if the Peg has that same excitement for me. I do think you could wear it for faster stuff, but I do wonder if the Peg is better suited for that. But I just think the Zoom X foam is magic. I would reach for this shoe more than I would reach for the Peg. So for me, I would say this is the more exciting running shoe on the market. The Peg, it's an everyday running shoe. There are others like it. So for me, I'd reach for the Invincible, but I'm sure you all guessed that from minute one of this video.
Okay, well, I think you know where I'm going to go, my verdict on whether I would go for the Invincible 3 over the Pegasus 40. I would go for the Invincible 3 personally. Obviously, it is a little bit more expensive, but I think in terms of what these shoes are designed for or should be used for, I think maybe it's getting a bit closer in terms of that. And actually I think the midsole and the feel of running in the Pegasus 40, I think is going to be if you like that kind of feel of what a good Pegasus has been, then that's what you're going to get. It's more of that, it's more of the same. But I think with the Invincible 3, I think you can do some of those same runs and ultimately get something that feels a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more comfortable, still gives you that scope to run a little bit quicker in, although it feels a little bit more controlled and kind of more stable than the previous Invincible shoes. And I think durability wise, these are shoes that are designed to take a lot of kind of pounding basically. So I think ultimately from a shoe that you're going to use regularly, I think both these shoes are going to handle that pretty well in terms of regular use. Just for me, I would probably be to going for the Invincible 3. I maybe would go for a cheaper Invincible actually, because I think you could pick that up for probably around the price of the Pegasus 40 or maybe a little bit less. And I think you're going to get a really a capable shoe that is comfortable, the upper fits well, you can run slow and long in it, you can run a little bit quicker if you want to in it as well. It gives you that capability, whereas I think the Pegasus 40, I think it's starting to feel like it needs something else. I think it's reliable, it's smooth, it's consistent, and for a lot of people that would be absolutely fine. But I think if you wanted something that, you know, feels like it's got a little bit more life to it for the same types of runs, then I would probably go for the Invincible 3.
That's our comparison of the Nike Pegasus 40 and the Invincible 3. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like, subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.